Hi everyone, welcome to Ancient Egyptian Hieroglyphs, Module 1, the alphabet, and I'm Sally Flintoff. So we're going to start by just getting a bit of an overview about the history of hieroglyphs before we dive in and actually look at the alphabet itself. So hieroglyphs are the original script that was used in ancient Egypt thousands of years ago. And over time, this script actually evolved into different forms. So the hieratic script evolved from the original hieroglyphic script, resulting from the use of reed pens to write rather than chiseling on a piece of stone. And the demotic script evolved from the hieratic script, becoming even more cursive. Cursive just simply means rounded. So I guess this is really a result of probably laziness. As human beings, we always want to find the shortest path to achieve our goal. And so once the hieroglyphs moved from being chiseled into stone and a reed pen was used, it was easier to shortcut, if you like. And, you know, I guess the ancient Egyptians were no different to us in that respect. However, as each new script emerged, it didn't completely replace the old script. And so the hieroglyphic script over time became reserved almost exclusively for sacred inscriptions on temple walls and public monuments. And when the Greeks came to Egypt, they noted this. And so they named this script hieroglyphs, from hieros, meaning sacred, and glyph, meaning to carve or to engrave. So hieroglyphs is a Greek word meaning sacred carvings. The first thing we need to understand is the direction of writing. So when we write English, it's always read from left to right. However, hieroglyphs are much more flexible. They can be read from left to right or right to left, top to bottom, even bottom to top. We can know which direction to read in from the direction that any animal or people hieroglyphs are facing. So the direction that they are facing is the direction that we start reading from. In this example, you can see here the snake is looking towards the left, the duck, this man or God is looking towards the left. So we would start reading this from the left. The snake would be the first hieroglyph that we read. In this instance, we have the exact same set of hieroglyphs, only they've been turned to face the other direction, and therefore we would read from right to left in this instance, still starting with the snake here. In this one, this is clearly in a column, so we need to read it from top to bottom, and the animals and people are looking towards the left. So the snake would be the first, then we would start at the left, go to the right. So wherever there's a row where there's more than one hieroglyph, we read left to right, but we start at the top and work our way down to the bottom. And in this column, they're looking towards the right. So it's still the same thing. We start at the top and go to the bottom, but we work from right to left. So other things that we need to note about the hieroglyphs is that effort is always made to arrange the hieroglyphs symmetrically without unsightly gaps, because the Egyptians really prized beauty highly. So you'll notice that these are all written efficiently, but also beautifully and symmetrically. Also, there are never any divisions marked between words or sentence. One hieroglyph follows another, so it's not easy until you gain a basic understanding of the hieroglyphs to, at a glance, determine where one word ends and another word begins. Other things to note are that vowels are consistently left out from the writing. So just as you can easily read a sentence in English without the vowels, that's frequently how hieroglyphs were written as well. And if you take a look at this sentence, there's no vowels in it. But I'm sure that you can read this if you try really hard. So because hieroglyphs is no longer a living language, we don't have anybody speaking ancient hieroglyphics. We've got no way of really knowing how the hieroglyphs actually sounded. So when we pronounce a word without the vowels, we're really taking a guess at what it might have sounded like. So in this example here, where we've got a U followed by an S, this combination of these two letters could be pronounced us or uas, eos or us, usi, uasa, and so on. There could have been a sort of a vowel pronunciation after, in between, before. We don't really know. So looking at the types of hieroglyphs, hieroglyphs are used in two main ways. The first main way, they are used as phonograms. A phonogram is a sound sign, so it represents a sound. And single sound phonograms approximate to our English alphabet, which is what we're going to spend the rest of this module looking at. The second type of hieroglyphs are ideograms, and these are picture signs. So the actual hieroglyph represents the picture of what it is. So they convey their meaning pictorially, and usually they accompany sound signs or phonograms. So other aspects of hieroglyphs worth noting are colours. So specific colours are used for each hieroglyph, and the colours are black, red, orange or flesh coloured, yellow or maybe gold, brown, green and blue. So every hieroglyph is assigned a specific colour. And the colour is important because each colour contains a deeper layer of meaning. We're not going to go into the colours today. We've got enough on our plate just learning which hieroglyph goes with which letter of the alphabet and what its meaning is. So each hieroglyph has a specific meaning related to what it represents, as well as representing a letter when we're looking at the phonograms. And this meaning is really important to gain a greater depth of understanding and to decipher the meaning of your name when you write your name in hieroglyphs. So hieroglyphs is a really rich language with multiple layers of meaning for each hieroglyph, which help you gain a greater understanding of what they were trying to represent. It's almost like a picture represents 1,000 words. It's the same with a single hieroglyph represents a myriad of meaning. So the translation of a hieroglyph to a letter of the English alphabet is generally based on the correlation between the hieroglyph and the sound that the English letter of the alphabet makes, more so than the actual letter itself. Though, of course, there is some correlation between the actual letter as well. And it's worth noting that some sounds are not found in the English script, but they are present in other languages, for example, Hebrew, Arabic, Gaelic, German, and so on. So when we're translating into English, we go with the closest sound and the letter of the English alphabet. That's the most relevant. So, for example, there's no direct correlation for the letter C in hieroglyphs, but that's because when used in words, C is either pronounced as a hard C, like car, in which case it makes a sound like a K, or it makes a soft sound like an S, as in the word receive. So we're going to go through now and look at each letter of the alphabet. So A is represented by a vulture, which is brown, and it has various meanings ranging from intuition, victory, mothering energy. It represents the power of digestion because vultures eat dead, rotting flesh and bones. They have very strong digestive juices. It represents survival. Vultures can survive long periods of time. They're very hardy birds. Apparently, they're also quite quick to anger. They're always picking fights with each other, so it represents anger. And this intuition and victory actually stems from ancient Egypt, where when two opposing armies would meet in battle, one of them, probably the reigning side or the ones that were being invaded, would bring a vulture out into the middle of the battlefield, and the two generals of the army would come together, and the vulture would be released from its cage, and whichever direction it walked in, so if it walked towards the opposing army or it turned and walked back towards your army, would indicate who was going to have victory in that battle. So if the vulture walked towards you, you would know that your army was going to be victorious. And if it walked towards the other army, they were going to be victorious. So this would totally alter the way you negotiated with that opposing army once you knew who was going to win. You'd be negotiating from a position of strength or a position of weakness. The letter B is a foot, a leg and a foot, or the lower leg and the foot. It's flesh coloured, and it represents a catalyst of movement and duality because we have two legs. As I said, there's no C. The letter D is flesh coloured, and it's a hand with a thumb. And it represents generosity, giving, and cooperation. If you think about how we use our hand, you know, we put our hand out to shake someone when we're meeting with them. It's an indication that we're going to be cooperative with them. We also give things with our hands, indicating a generosity of spirit. E is represented by a single reed leaf, which is green. And it represents the love of knowledge, growth, purification, and peace. And reed leaves were used to write down the language and the knowledge. This is where the idea of a love of knowledge comes from. Reed leaves also represent growth and purification because where they grow in the Nile, they actually purify the water itself. So wherever you see a reed leaf growing in the Nile, you know that that water is pure, and it's okay to drink. And after we purify ourselves, we reach a state of peace, which is where this idea of peace comes from. Now, F or V, again, there's no V. They make quite a similar sound, or a sound, is represented by a viper, a horned viper, which is black. And this represents secretiveness. Horned vipers apparently are very good at camouflaging themselves. It represents power, anger, and aggression because a horned viper will strike out of nowhere very, very quickly. And they're a pretty dangerous snake. G, this is a hard G sound, as in the word gate. It's represented by a water jar, which is green. Sometimes this, in a sort of triangle shape, is blue. And it represents growth, harmony, and prosperity that has been earned rather than inherited. H is represented by this helix, which is a gold colour, yellow or gold colour. It represents DNA. You can see clearly this is like DNA, like a double helix. It also obviously therefore represents regeneration. It also represents the container of life itself. H is also represented by this symbol, which is actually a field. So it's almost like a bird's eye view of a field. It represents enclosure or something enclosed, an enclosure of life. So if your name has an H in it, you are free to choose either of these two symbols to represent that sound or that letter in your name. And you choose the one which resonates most with you, which you feel is most true about your character or your personality. Alternatively, you can choose the other one if you feel that it embodies characteristics that you would like to bring more of into your life. The I is represented by double reed leaves. It also represents the Y at the end of the word, as in marry or sorry or Sally. And again, it represents the love of knowledge, especially written. We're looking at 2 reed leaves here now. Also, again, purification and peace. J. Now, this makes a J sound or a soft G sound, as in the word jar, or in the sound giant. If your name is George or Georgina, for example, anything with that soft J sound, you would use this hieroglyph to write your name with, not the hieroglyph for the hard G sound, as in gate, that we just looked at. This is a snake and it's black. It represents diplomacy, the power of communication, and flexibility. You think about a snake, incredibly flexible body, if you like. K, and again, this is the hard K sound, as in take, also the hard C sound, as in car. So again, if your name is Catherine or Cat, you would be using this hieroglyph. It's a basket, it's brown, so it's a basket with a sort of a little handle or loop on the side here. It represents order, organization, and masculinity. The L is a lion, and it's brown in color. It represents courage, strength, and guardianship, all the things that a lion in the wild represents. You know, we all speak about the heart of a lion. They're very courageous animals, and they move in packs. You know, apart from the male lions, which are often single, the mothers move together. Very strong maternal instinct, guardianship over their young. The M is represented by an owl, which is brown, and it means wisdom, watchfulness, and passivity. Again, there's another letter for M that you can also use, and this is actually a tunnel, and it represents silence. Sorry, so it represents silence. So again, if you have an M in your name, pick the M that you resonate with most to write your name. Alternatively, if you know that you're more of the silent, kind of secretive, withdrawn, like dark like a tunnel, but you would like to embody more of this watchfulness and wisdom aspect, then write your name with the owl, because that will start to bring that vibration will start to become more apparent in your life. You will draw it into you, attract it, manifest it. N is represented by this red crown, and it stands for or signifies royalty, refinement, and dignity. The other hieroglyph that can be used for N is this blue waterways, and there are 7 peaks on this. 7's an important number. The waterways represent harmony, purification, gentleness, balance, that type of thing. So again, you choose the one that either resonates or that you would like to embody more of if you're writing your name in hieroglyphs. The O is represented by this magic knot. This has a meaning of psychological complexity, secrecy, also the energy that is held in every atom. So this knot here is tying something up. This is where the secrecy, there's something hidden, bound by this knot here. P is represented by this green rectangle, which actually represents the papyrus bundle. So when they harvest the papyrus, they bundle it all together, a bit like I guess how we do our hay today. So this bundle of papyrus represents the letter P, and it stands for prosperity gained through inheritance. So I guess, you know, if your family has lots of a papyrus farm, I don't know if that was such a thing, but you get the idea, you might inherit that wealth. So that's probably where that comes from. Q is green. It's represented by this hieroglyph, which is a hill. This represents a hill, and it represents prosperity gained through effort. Obviously, to reach the heights of this hill, you have to climb it. It takes a lot of effort to go against gravity and climb up a hill. It also, of course, represents higher evolution, because when we reach the top of the mountain, we get that bird's eye view. We're getting higher, closer to heaven, etc. R is represented by this red hieroglyph, which is actually an open mouth, so it's the lips. It represents spirituality, unity, the power of sound, which created the universe. It's a beautiful hieroglyph, this one. If you've got this in your name, you're very lucky. S is represented by this linen fold, and it's gold. So in ancient Egypt, the ministers used to carry a linen fold over their arm, and that would represent their position of power to a degree. Like if you saw someone with a linen fold over their arm, you would know that they were a person of importance. And actually, once the linen fold went away, they used a pin. So you will even see now, I think it's in America, but I could be wrong with that, that a linen fold is a pin is given to ministers. And this is where it comes from ancient Egypt. So it represents action, authority, and practicality. You know, ministers are responsible for getting things done. They're in positions of authority. They're practical people that have to work out solutions to problems for the people. T is a loaf of bread. It's brown, and it represents domesticity, nourishment, and femininity. U is represented by this baby quail chick. It's brown, and it represents simplicity and innocence. Very easy to see that correlation there between the hieroglyph and its meaning. W is represented by this black squiggle, which is actually a looped snake. So it's a snake that is looped, and so it's currently dormant, but it's getting ready to spring. So it represents, again, this hidden energy waiting. It's lying dormant, but it's there ready to spring forth. V, as I said, there is no V. So if you've got a V in your name, you use the F, the hieroglyph for the F sound, the horned viper. And then we get to X. So X represents it's sort of like a guttural sound at the back of your throat. This is one of these sounds that we don't really have in the English language. In Gaelic or Scottish, they talk about a loch. We kind of interpret that more like a K sound, but it isn't really when it's spoken correctly. So it's almost like an X in the middle of a word. Trying to think of a word, but it might come to me. Anyway, this is represented by this blue hieroglyph, which is a sacred lake, sometimes known as a placenta as well. So it represents purification. The sacred lake is the waters from which, the primordial waters from which life sprang. So you can see that correlation with the placenta. The placenta is what feeds the baby. It nurtures and brings forth new life within mammals. It can also be represented by this red hieroglyph, which actually is a torch. So these are like the flames coming out from the end of a torch, and this represents the spark of life, living energy, passion, sexuality. Again, if you have an X sound, a sound in your name, like act, so if your name was Axel, you could choose this or this, whatever resonates, or alternatively, what you would like to bring more of into your life and embody. Y makes a long E sound as in marry. And this only will ever appear at the end of the word. If you have a Y in the middle of your name, you should use the double reed leaves. And this actually is just a shortened version of the reed leaves in a way, but it's really more the stalks of the reeds. And again, it represents similar things: power of learning, a seeker of knowledge, and duality in number, because there's two of them. Z, this represents a bolt. It's blue. So this is like a bolt that goes over a door, and it signifies, if you've got a Z in your name, it signifies that you are an opener of closed doors or a revealer of hidden things. So you can show other people things that they're not aware of. You can reveal that knowledge to them because you know it, or you have it somewhere inside of you. Some other letters that we need to look at that are not strictly alphabet is this double A sound. It makes a long ah sound. So if you've got that in your name, like Sarah, you might choose to use this rather than the A, even if your name is spelled S-A-R-A. You may use this one because it makes the ah sound. So Sarah rather than Sarah. And this is an arm, so an upper arm and an arm with the hand held out. And it represents strength, power, and action. Like, we use our entire arm. Like, for example, in martial arts, the strength doesn't come from the wrist, it comes from the entire arm, and actually the body, if we're, being strictly correct, but you get what I'm saying. Sh is a single sound, even though it's written with two letters. So as in she or wash. So if your name is Sheila, you would use this letter rather than an S and an H. It's a blue and it's pool of water. So this is sort of like, again, a bird's eye view looking down on a pool of water. And it represents water. And then we have the ch or the th sound, which are interchangeable. So as in the word chart. So if you happen to have a ch sound in your name, this is what you would use, or even a th sound. This is what you would use. It's red, and this is a tethering rope. So these are like the two loops, and this is the rope that joins the two loops. So this is what's put onto oxen or goats, for example, when you want to leave them out, but you don't want them to go too far. They've got this around their front legs, and so they can't actually walk very far or very fast. It's a tethering rope. And so it symbolizes this bringing together, this connecting together. So let's put this into action with my name to give you an example of how it really looks. So after this, when you go to write your name, as I'm sure you want to do, because it's a really cool thing to do to understand what your name means and how that informs your personality and your character, we look at my name, Sally. So I've got this up here so you can quickly see which hieroglyphs you would need. So we've got the S, which is the linen fold, the A, which is the vulture, a lion, two lions, and the Y. And now I'm going to now I'm going to talk you through how this meaning relates to me personally. So I really resonate with the action and authority of the meaning of the S. I am a person who takes action. When I'm motivated and I want something to happen, I will take action and I will make that happen. Authority, I tend to rise to leadership roles generally. I teach yoga, and I'm in a position of authority in my kind of, day job. Yeah, so that's me. The vulture is very representative of me. I have very strong intuition. I use my intuition to inform most of my decisions, my understanding of people's behaviour, all of those kinds of things. I have very strong mothering energy. There is nothing that I would not do for my children. There's no doubt that I'm a survivor. I have experienced significant trauma throughout my entire life. So I have incredibly strong survival instincts. And even though I don't really want to admit this out loud, it's true. I'm quick to anger. I do get triggered quite easily and I will go to anger. Just ask my husband and he will verify that for you. I use two L's in my name, even though my name isn't Sally. I could use one L because that's the sound Sally. It would still read as Sally, but I choose to use two because I am the most courageous person that I know on this planet. I have incredible strength to have survived what I have survived and to face what I have survived, and I have incredibly strong sense of guardianship for those around me that I love, my friends and my family. The double reed stalks, there's no question that I am a seeker of knowledge and truth. I am constantly seeking to upgrade my consciousness, my vibration. I am always taking self-development, personal growth type courses. I'm constantly seeking more knowledge, even with this whole hieroglyph thing. When I learn something new and it resonates, I just want more and more and more. And I research it until I understand it. So sorry about my dogs. And that's the end of this first module. I'll leave you with this, which shows you all of the hieroglyphs that we've just been through. You can take a screenshot of that or maybe with your phone, so you've got it there, and then you can go away and write out your name. And I will leave it there.